Hey traders, welcome to another crypto market update. We'll be going over mainly BTC and the US dollar. And before we get into the video, we just have to discuss that there is some FUD involving US Tether or USDT, which is the most liquid stable coin. It's what a lot of people use to trade assets, altcoins, really in the cryptocurrency market. There are other altcoins that you can use, but USDT is by far the most liquid. So in short, the FUD is that US Tether is saying they have a certain amount in reserve. It was initially backed by a 1-to-1 ratio, which is obviously not the case right now. So they're being not very transparent, and there's a lack of trust within the market for USDT. So then if there is news coming out that they have a lot less in reserve than what a lot of people think, there could be a run on, the US Tether, I guess, and then people would be want to get away from US Tether because there's a lack of trust, there's a lack of transparency, and go towards sound money. This kind of happened in inflationary periods, let's say back in the 70s in the United States. There was a lack of trust on the dollar. It was devaluing. There were more dollars in circulation than what was initially perceived. And at the end of the day, there was a run on the dollar and people flooded into gold and silver because it was sound money. So then we could see something like this happen as well. There are other stable coins, but majority of the volume that is traded on most exchanges is going to be US Tether. So now we're going to get into the video here looking at the TA. There's probably going to be some volatility when that news is coming out for USDT, but could be to the upside. We have no idea yet. We just have to look at the price action, look at TA, look at the volume, and keep up to date with all the news. So going into the TA here, we do see a nice triangle, symmetrical triangle within BTC's 2-hour chart. When we're looking at the weekly, we already know that this 30K zone is a major level of support. I have basically three or four, depending on if you want to count two of kind of similar ones, but 3 or 4 confirmations that there is key levels of support around the 30K zone. Let's just zoom it in right here so we get a little bit more volume. So we're expecting this to hold. Look at previous videos. We've really gone in depth into why this 30K zone is so important, but I'm viewing this as a major level of demand. And right now we do see a nice squeeze coming in. Could break the ascending zone, but as long as the descending zone is still respected, I'm viewing this as a symmetrical triangle or a squeeze or a descending triangle, and then a next push to the upside breaking 50K. So that's going to be the overall structure that we're going to be looking for, is that 30K zone to hold. That's where this came into play. And then we do see a massive push to the upside. I think it's very, very good that we're seeing some level of consolidation, the market take a breath, which is very important for the next setup, because this is a nice contraction in the volatility, and we're looking for contractions before the next expansion phase. Right here, this was a massive contraction from the 2017 bull run all the way up until we started our bull market back in kind of the fall or winter of 2020. That's when we really saw the massive impulse push start right around October, or even late September is when we started to really ramp up and contract, and then have that massive explosion. So we're in my opinion, we're in the bull run. It's going to last basically for most of 2021 in my view, so I am looking only for longs. Right now, we're in a consolidation. I absolutely love that, but the only direction I'm looking to trade in BTC is to the long side. I'm not looking for shorts, and just does not make sense for me to. So when we are looking at the smaller time frame, even if we break this ascending zone, we're still going to be looking for that next potential structure, which is going to be a descending zone. So we see this is our first impulsive push. We see our first consolidation right here, and then our second impulsive push breaking the major level of 30K, and then we're now retesting it for a nice level of support. So in short, we see, if you're looking at it from an Elliott wave, this is the A, and then this is the B, or 1, 2, and then this is the 3, and then we have the pullback, and then this is the final 5th wave that I think is going to hit that 50K, and then we might have another pullback, which we will look at the price action and have a structure and have a list of rules that we abide by, and just basically do the same thing over and over and over. So when we are looking at the daily chart, we do see a nice contraction, series of lower highs and higher lows, squeezing the price towards the apex of this triangle, which is great to see. Nice contraction, not a ton of buy volume when we are looking at the volume here. Also, when we talk about volume, we do have our own volume bars, which basically average out all the major exchanges and put it into one volume chart, so then it's really easy to analyze the overall market, not just one single exchange. So we do see lots of wicks to the downside here, indicating buy pressure, picking the price right back up above the support, pushing it to the highs here. We do see that previous level of resistance, new level of support right there, holds. So holding really nice market structure, and what we're looking for is that break around 40K zone, which we will look at on a smaller time frame. But when we're looking at the daily chart, we see well respected all around, lots of wicks to the downside. We see the previous high turn into new low right here, as well as the type 2, which is that nice wick to the downside, and then pushed right back up. Really good price action, not the best volume because we do see quite a bit of sell pressure when we are getting that sell off, and then on the way up, we're not getting nearly that much buy pressure. But when we do look at different time frames, it'll definitely show different volume bars. Like we can see just on the 12-hour, there's more buy volume when we are testing that previous resistance as a new level of support. So what we're seeing right now, let's just take a picture right here. We will talk about this. This is the 2-hour chart, but let's first talk about the 12-hour. So we see a lot of hesitation before actually breaking this 30K zone. This was a nice ascending zone, ascending triangle, and then it broke, retested right here. Nice big wick to the downside, and then we got another impulsive push to continue the overall momentum. So then this was our initial buy pressure zone, and then we got a higher low, and then we can just connect the higher lows, and then we can see that's how we created our ascending trend line, to create our ascending trend line right here for then the symmetrical triangle. But what we can see even further is now we're holding this candle closure as a wick closure, which is very, very significant because we just know how important this level is. Previous resistance, we see wicks extending beyond this zone. Let's just zoom right in here because I know some people do look at this video on the mobile devices, so don't want to make it too difficult. So we see this resistance turning into wick closures right here. We see candle closures right here with the wicks extending far beyond the zone, but the buyers every single time, 1, 2, 3, 4, brought it right back to the close of the candles right here, all 4 times for 12 hours. For very, very significant. And then when we see the price come back close to it, we just see the wick touch this zone and bring it right back up. So we know there is a ton of buyers around the $34,000 zone, previous resistance. So in my view, that's going to be the major level for the demand. So then what we're seeing right now is a series of lower highs and a major level of demand right here. So now we're creating a descending triangle formation. I think that is going to the upside, breaking the resistance. And then what we're going to be looking for after that point is going to be the descending zone right here and the ascending zone right here. And then ideally, we want to see some level of contraction because this is our first touch, this is our second touch, and we want to see a third touch, slight pullback, and then if we see a nice ascending zone here, contract the price, and then we get our massive blast off. So that is what we're going to be looking for in BTC on a large time frame. Let's look at a smaller time frame to look at a little bit more of the granular details of the price action. So this was that squeeze we were talking about. Could move to the upside or downside. Did not break the resistance. We don't enter. That's why we like to have the confirmation. Had a pretty aggressive sell-off to the 30K zone. We were able to make a higher low and then a higher low right here. Yes, that is a lower low than this one, but at the end of the day, you're looking at these major zones right here. So let's just take a picture of here. All of these, this isn't a perfect double bottom, but you see, boom, and then you get the rally, and then you get the rally. And I think you're going to get the rally to this zone. You're going to get some hesitation because there's this descending zone and the horizontal zone. Let's just look at the zone of confluence and why it's so important. We see 1, 2, 3, 4 lower highs. 1, 2, very well respected. So that descending zone right here, as well as this resistance. Support, 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 resistance, and then a resistance again right here. So we know that there's a decent amount of sell pressure within this zone right here. So what we're going to be looking for is to see the price push above this zone to squeeze up in there. So then we had our first squeeze, which was kind of like this. And then we squeeze to the upside, which was great to see. And then we see another squeeze right here, which squeezes up again. So we know that buyers are in the market. We know that bulls have confidence. And then what we're going to be looking for is once it breaks this major zone, because within it, we already see the bulls have control of the market. Within the squeezes, like if we're in a downtrend, you'll see the squeezes move to the downside, and then it'll consolidate, and then it'll form another squeeze, and then it'll move to the downside, and that's the type of market you're looking for in a bearish market when you're shorting. But then in a bullish market, you see the squeezes push to the upside. So the bulls still have confidence within the market. So what we're going to be looking for is a break in this zone right here. Ideally, you're looking for the price action to consolidate and trade above this 40K zone, retesting a previous resistance as a new level of support, and then you're going to be expecting an impulsive push from the bulls after you see that confirmation that the price is already trading above this zone. If you're looking for extra confirmation, probably going to be retesting one of these zones right here. So that's going to be the first option right here if you're a little bit more aggressive, and then the new high would be a little bit more of the conservative approach. So you could be putting in like a potential feeler trade for number one, and then once it trades into box number two, you could be looking for a little bit more of an aggressive entry with a little bit more added on, obviously with your stop loss somewhere where you're looking at, just because you don't want to, you want to be keeping in mind risk because of the volatility, right? With the USDT FUD that is going around, we have to keep that in mind, but that's going to be the overall direction and the overall structure we're looking for when we are entering a long in BTC within this current price action. So now we're going to look at the US dollar to see where we currently are at. Now, just a reminder, we want to see the US dollar go down while Bitcoin goes up, because they're negatively correlated. Similar to, let's say, the S&P is also a risk on asset, usually moves up to the upside. Surprisingly, we see gold and silver not do as well, and I think that's because the institutions are actually looking at Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies more so than gold and silver, which is pretty substantial in terms of how people are viewing the overall role that Bitcoin plays in the global macro portfolio of any hedge fund or institutional investor's portfolio, which is monumental, let's just say that. So now let's look at the US dollar. Also, quick note, I think Neptune Dash is looking pretty darn decent. It's forming a really, really nice descending trend line. It broke to the downside, which isn't ideal, but I think what we're going to be looking for is a nice support right around the 22-23 cent range, nice descending zone, and then we could be holding above 35 cents. I think we could be getting that next leg to the upside. But now we're going to be looking on the US dollar. Quick little side note. Also, S&P doesn't look absolutely wonderful, but we will see how it goes. The S&P, if the S&P starts to fall, that could completely change the overall market. Like if it doesn't hold below this support or this zone right here, that's going to be something that could shift the overall market, because if the S&P starts to fall and go below 3,700, I'd say definitely 3,700. If it goes below that support, we could see the US dollar move to the upside, which could weaken BTC and other cryptocurrencies, which then we would have to change our bias, have to be a little bit more patient. I don't expect, to be completely honest, this to absolutely plummet, just because the fundamentals aren't really there. It withstood through a lot of 2020, and it's still bullish, and really there's no one really hawkish. Everyone's really dovish. There's more stimulus coming. Interest rates are sticking at basically 0%. They're even talking about negative interest rates, so I don't really expect the speculative nature of the current market to stop. I think it's just going to continue. So when we are looking at DXY, let's just zoom back a little bit. So we know that this 88-89 zone is a major level of support for the huge double top. So on the large time frame, this is what we see right there. And then the 88-89 zone is right there. So if we are going to be breaking this zone right here, we're going to be dropping pretty far a ways down, which could mean that BTC is going to be mooning, which is going to be really exciting. But it's still a speculation, right? We haven't still broken it, so we know that there is a lot of demand right here. So right now we had a slight squeeze, a descending channel or descending wedge. Initially, we were thinking it was going to squeeze to the downside. It did break to the upside. I'm thinking it's a fake out. This zone right here is a major level. It's around 90, 50, 91. Did break slightly above the zone. We do see that resistance right here did get broken. It's okay if we do have slightly higher highs, because we do see we could form a nice ascending zone right here. And if we're maybe going to get a series of slight higher lows like that, we could see something like this, and then we're going to get our bearish push to the downside. Once it breaks below this support, we could be seeing a lot more sell pressure. Once it breaks below this, we're going to be seeing a ton of sell pressure, and that could be the formation that we're seeing for the DXY, even if we are forming slightly higher highs and higher lows. So that's going to be option number one, is we get our ascending wedge where we get sell pressure, and then we get a series of slight higher highs and higher lows like that, and then we start to get our sell-off, and then we get a potential double bottom, and then once we start breaking, we really start dropping to the downside. That's going to be the option number one that we're going to be looking for. And I think it's still a potential opportunity, even though it did move to a little bit higher there. That's going to be the ascending zone that we're going to be keeping an eye on. We don't really have a series of higher lows yet, but that is what we're going to be looking for to potentially play out for our first option. And if it starts to really start to rip above this, like this is the last zone that I want to see it break. If it breaks above 91, that's going to be a little bit worrying. I think if it does break above 91, the S&P is going to be dropping. BTC, instead of a symmetrical triangle, is probably going to be breaking down, and then we're going to be looking at a potential descending triangle. And then if it breaks below that, we'll have to maybe look at that. But it's just patience at the end of the day, and looking at the other assets that are negatively or positively correlated, and looking at the entire market and not just a single asset, but as a network of moving parts and one giant mechanism, really, one giant pool of capital that's wish-washing around, and it's just emotions of a ton of people of the globe, basically. So that's going to be what we're going to be looking for the US dollar. I think that it's still looking pretty bearish. This is the large double top that we were talking about. We see that the buyers are still definitely in the market, and it's going to take a lot to break this low, because we saw it hold oh so well. And we see it was a previous key level of significance back in 2014. So that's the current structure of the US dollar. I think we could see that ascending wedge form and then break to the downside. Probably we can see that right here, and that another sell-off. And at the end of the day, no one truly knows what's going to happen, but that's going to be my speculation. And unless something else happens, I'm just going to stick with that, because it has been working. The trend has been definitely my friend for the good part of 2020, and I think 2021 is going to just be a continuation of that. Let's just keep that there. So that's going to be the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. We truly appreciate it. If you found this to be useful, entertaining, educational, anything similar to that, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, so we should continue, so we know to continue to make videos like this. If you are bearish, tell us why. If you're bullish and agree with us, tell us why. Definitely like to know different people's opinions to get a better understanding of what people are thinking, not because I want to know what people are thinking, but because it's actually interesting to know why people are thinking what they're thinking, not so much so then I can just copy them or anything like that, but just to know what the pulse is in the market, so then I have a good gauge of what retail traders are thinking. I read up on the news of what the fundamental traders, or the fundamental investors, not so much TA, but more of the institutional investors that are looking at BTC as a hedge against inflation. I know what they're doing, just following the news, or at least trying to. So at the end of the day, it's really good to get a pulse of the overall market. So thank you very much for listening, watching to another crypto market update. We hope you enjoy it. We have been, in my opinion, pretty darn good for calls in terms of the TA, in terms of the overall moves that have been occurring. Hopefully you are following along and making some money, because I think 2021 is going to be an extremely lucrative year if you are positioning yourself in the correct way. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Until next time, have a good one, traders.